o'clock. We do not need closed session, so we are going to move on to item number 3. Oh, no, we don't need that either. For item 4, our roll call shows that all trustees are in attendance.
Except for Barrett.
Except for Barrett. That's why I'm talking. Okay, perfect. And items 5 and 6, do we have any public comments? Thank you. Item 7, we need to consider approval of District of Innovation teachers for the 2021-2022 school year. Dr. Messer.
We have 3 candidates who we would, who they're not currently certified, that we would like to locally certify through the District of Innovation plan. We feel that their experience, training, and education in terms of their background really qualify them to fulfill the responsibilities of their assigned roles. Their qualifications are included in the board book, so we just like to move forward with a recommendation from you to, or really us recommending to you to approve our employees as part of the District of Innovation and local certification.
I move we approve the 3 employees for District of Innovation.
Hold on just one second. I think Marvin
I
may
just
have a
wanted to-
question.
No, I don't have a question. I just want to turn and read it. real
Okay,
quick.
okay, okay,
I'm not going to read up the whole thing. Just gonna look. Oh, I see. Okay. We're good.
okay. Motion,
Motion for me.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Messer. Okay, item 8 on our agenda is a report on our K-4 transition from our elementary principal.
Hi. Well, instead of us talking, because we feel like we've talked to you a lot, we prepared a movie to kind of show you what has happened throughout the summer, and then we'll take questions afterwards.
That's the way to do it.
Really fun, and I'm excited to go to Hart.
My name is Damien, and we enjoyed tonight. It was great meeting all the parents, teachers, and teachers.
What are you looking forward to here? Math? Recess? PE? What else? Art?
I like PE.
We're going to do all of that, aren't we?
do you feel the two brand new schools approach is going? It feels to me like it's awesome, but what's your take on that? Like pros, cons, like just where we are?
Feedback I'm getting from staff right now is that they feel very much like this is a new school and that we're all. So, my perception right now is that this is very much all of us getting kind of a new start and we're all in the same boat. Great opportunity for us to renorm our practices on campus and renorm some of our structures and routines. Collaborative planning coming up, just what that looks like, playing together on our teams. The feeling is very positive.
Good. I would agree also. Y'all have done great with that.
Are there resources that you think you still need that you don't have to help the transition?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. That's a great question, though. I don't think
We've
so. I mean,
had a lot of support, just the physical logistics of furniture and purging and getting what we need for new sections. We've had a lot of support from our facilities and maintenance.
our poor custodial staff, they have worked tirelessly. I mean, the amount of trash that we've had, and I mean, like, at one time, they came and emptied our dumpster, and then like an hour later, our dumpster was full. I mean, our poor custodial staff, I mean, they've been amazing. They have just stepped up and helped move and everything. I mean, it's definitely been a community effort for sure. So, I mean, so I don't think so, but thank you for offering.
How you feel about drop off, pickup, the logistics
Keeping me up
there?
at night, right? I'm not gonna lie. I would be lying if I said it weren't. I think we have some solutions in place. We know that we're just gonna have to jump in and do it, and know that it will probably be bumpy at first. It always is anyway.
Yeah.
But we'll do some fine tuning and we'll smooth things out, and by week 2, maybe 3, we will be, I think, running well.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying some new things, so, it looks great on a map and on paper, and it's really colorful, but never until you live it do you know if it's gonna work. So we're hoping, but it'll be probably bumpy at first.
Yeah.
We'll get
Can
there.
you see the percentage? Do we know like the percentage of bus riders and then car riders? Like, can you estimate that compared to what it is or was?
I can tell you at last count, I know Dee will probably speak to this as well, but at last count, we were in about 250 some bus riders. I'm sure that number's changed since I last saw it. Obviously, that's more than what we had last year, just because our change in the dynamic of who's riding the bus and who isn't. But we anticipate having about 4 more buses on campus than we did last year.
Just curious if that might relieve the car line at all.
Well, and too, though, it's also kind of different because usually like the first week of school or like the first day, especially like everybody wants to pick their kiddo up. So I think it's going to take us a little bit of time to figure out like, usually after the first day, parents like, okay, you can ride the bus now. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
And it's a little hard to predict too, because last year we didn't have 100% on campus.
That's right.
And so, that was a gradual increase throughout the year of car riders coming back on work and bus riders. And so we really don't know yet exactly what this is going to look like. It's a little tough to predict.
Any other questions?
I just want to thank Mrs. Kraft and Mrs. Haynes for everything that they have done to get us ready for a great start to the school year. And they have been so proactive with the traffic. I would encourage everyone who's out there that might be watching this live to make sure that they read through the pickup and drop off procedures to help that go as smooth as possible, and that we all have a lot of patience and grace the first couple weeks of school, because it's a lot of new people doing a procedure. Maybe it's a bit different than before, but I think what they've done is the best possible scenario. And we always know that it calms down a little bit after the first couple of weeks when everybody knows what they're doing. And, some of those kiddos will probably go from being in their parents' car to being on the bus.
A couple times through the long car line just to help make some decisions.
It's parent goals.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Well done.
Okay, item 9 is a report on our K-12 enrollment. Stacy.
Evening, trustees. It is my pleasure to be here this evening to visit with you about enrollment numbers K through 12. We'll start with a look at our elementary schools. We have a total current 600 enrolled at Hart Elementary School. And we can see the breakdown by grade levels there. And then at Pastor, a total of 664. A common question that we get from folks is, where are we as far as the building is concerned in relation to those numbers? The previous administration presented the following numbers for our consideration. That functional space at Hart, so we'll take a look back at Hart. Functional space at Hart was 600 and functional space at Pastor 650. So you can see that we're very close to both of those functional numbers. The other number that the previous administration also presented was actual space available. So the difference between functional space and actual space, functional space is space that's been set aside for actual classrooms. Actual space is the space that could be used and is available if every single class was used as it was built and intended to be used as a classroom. So for example, there are some classroom spaces on campuses that are being used for other purposes. For example, a counselor might have an actual classroom, and the counselors do great work, and those spaces are amazing for our counselors, and we're so thankful that we're able to do that right now. And also spaces like a sensory room, which is extremely impactful on kids who need those spaces. But those are spaces that are not considered functional, but actual spaces. So there is, while these numbers do look right on the dot as far as previous numbers presented for functional space, there is still plenty of actual space should it become necessary to add a classroom or to add students. So some of the things that we look at when we are considering capacity is, of course, programming. So I mentioned the sensory room just a moment ago. So one of our special programmings that we would look at when we're looking at scheduling spaces and scheduling classrooms would definitely be programming such as special services to serve some of our special population students. And in that would include GT services as well. So there are definitely spaces that are set aside at both of our elementary campuses to serve our GT population in 3rd and 4th grade. We look at class space. We project on teachers. So we budget based on what we anticipate will be the number of students that we have, and hire and staff based on those numbers. And then, of course, we look at class size. So, for example, right now at Hart, and I'll just go by grade level. In kinder, we have 3 available seats: 1st 3, 2nd 7, 3rd 4, and 4th 8. So what we set out to do with the restructure of the elementary schools is what has actually happened. So we only have very few seats available. We're running at maximum efficiency, and that was certainly the goal of what we did with the restructure. Similarly, I can't say that. Y'all know what I mean.
Yeah, we
Pastor, the available seats in kinder are 6, in 1st grade 2, 2nd 8, 3rd 9, and 4th 15 spaces. So again, very efficient at Pastor and exactly what we set out to do. classroom. If we do have new residents who move in and it requires us to look at something different as far as numbers are concerned, because remember, K through 4, we schedule on a 22-to-1 ratio, 22 students to 1 teacher per classroom. So if it did become necessary for us to look at other options, the first option that we would always consider would be a transfer to a campus with space. So for example, there are 8 spaces currently available in 4th grade at Hart. Let's say we filled those with residents. Well, there's 15 at Puster. So we could, it's not of course what what we would want to do if we didn't need to, but there are 15 available spaces in 4th grade at Puster, so we could transfer to a different campus. We've done that for many, many years, and it's not unusual. Many districts do that. We could also adjust the class size. So let's say that we have 1 resident move in and there's not we're at the 22-to-1 maximum in that particular grade level. We could adjust the class size. We could put that 1 extra resident in a class. That would require a waiver from the state of Texas, but that's certainly a possibility. If there became enough students enrolled to where it was necessary, we could add a class. It does take 8 students to pay for a teacher in a classroom. But that definitely could be an option. And as I mentioned previously, there absolutely is space left at our campuses, both Hart and Puster, for us to be able to do that. So that's a look at the elementary. Do you have any questions before we move on?
I just wanted to clarify. So you talked about the functional space.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read the numbers, 1 kinder, 6 second, whatever they were, I don't remember. I read them down.
Right.
Is that based off the functional, meaning what we've already kind of set it up for?
Those are actual
Or that's
numbers.
off the actual? Okay.
Actual
So that's
numbers.
if we needed to make the adjustments.
That's correct.
With those rooms.
What,
Okay.
what were the capacities at Hart again?
Functional 600.
No, I mean with the available seats for each grade level.
Oh, okay. Kinder 3, first 3, second 7, third 4, and fourth 8.
That's at Hart.
That's at Hart.
And
Yes,
then I missed the 4th grade number for Puster.
15.
And I would just note that that changes almost every
15
minute of
minutes.
every day.
It does. That is a moving target. Yeah, our PEMS coordinator got a phone call today from a family who has 5 children, and they've been in the district all summer, and they've just let us know that they're ready to enroll. So it changes, and we have changes just really quite frequently throughout the day. So those numbers are definitely a moving target.
I have a question, and you may have said it and I didn't fully understand, but if a resident moves in and they are zoned or close to Puster and that's full, will they need then to go to Hart?
We would look at Hart to see if there was available space at Hart, and if there was, yes. It's important to know in situations like that, oftentimes there's siblings, and we do keep siblings together. In the past, we haven't had to do that yet this year, but in the past when we have done that, we have always offered an option for the sibling to move with them. We also, for that year that we require that transfer, we do provide that family with bus transportation for that year. They do not have to, like if it were to happen this year, they would not have to pay the fee, because that is something that we're imposing on that family. And then for the following year, we do let them know that we will work with them to place them at their home campus if they so choose, or that they can stay at the campus where they were transferred. And it's really quite interesting. I've been in this role for 5 years now, and during the course of those 5 years, I've only had 1 family that has wanted to move to their home campus. They get settled wherever they are. They fall in love with their principals, and they fall in love with their teachers, and they just don't want to move. And that second year, if they choose to stay on that campus, then at that point, transportation becomes their responsibility.
I have one question, Stacy. So you went through the available seats for each campus. Are there currently applications pending, wait lists, things like that? I know you mentioned the 5
For Lovejoy
move-ins.
scholars? For your
Well,
Lovejoy
just
scholars
are
or
there,
residents?
I'm not saying we're going to fill those empty seats, but is there a wait list or are there current applications pending?
Well, so there's not
And those-
necessarily a wait list. There are families that have told us that they are moving into the district, but we don't have enrollments for them yet. And so we don't count those in our numbers. So for example, at Hart, we're expecting 2 enrollments from residents. We're in kinder, 1 in first grade, 1 in second, 1 in third, and 2 in fourth. Now, as far as Lovejoy scholars are concerned, which some people might ask that question as well, there would be no available seats for Lovejoy scholars. If there are waiting lists for Lovejoy scholars now if they want to be admitted into the program. And a common question I get from those families is, well, what are my chances? And my answer to them always is, I really can't predict what your chances are. Really, probably your best chance would be if a large number of residents moved in and we had to open up a classroom, then you might have an opportunity to complete the application process, which we review, of course, for grades, test scores, attendance records, and discipline records. And if they meet criteria, then we could then look at placing them. But right now, there's not any available space for those.
At what point did we move that to a wait list for the scholars when it hit? Was it at a capacity level or was it?
Well, so we actually projected our numbers for Lovejoy scholars, and I didn't bring those numbers with me, so I'm doing this off the top of my head, which is never a really good idea for me. But there were certain grade levels where we took 0 Lovejoy scholars. Really kinder through 4th grade. Once you get into 5th grade, you don't have this type of scheduling that you have to look at. So there were some grades that we took, we didn't take any. I know for sure at Hart. Pester, I think we did take a few at almost every grade level. Again, Jason, I'm doing this by memory, and it's never a good thing for me to do that by memory, but I can most definitely get you those numbers. I do have them.
So do you have an estimate for the number of elementary Lovejoy scholars that are on a wait list? Just a rough estimate.
So if I had to guess, I would say with Hart and Pester combined, there's probably about 25 that are on the wait list. Yeah. And I would say that their chances are not very good unless we do open up a new class in that particular grade level that they're applying for.
Okay.
And we monitor the numbers formally as a team twice a week.
We do.
Because we want to make sure we're on top of it and that we're adjusting if necessary. And then informally, the staff is almost looking at it daily.
Yeah. And Nancy Lessner, who is our PEMS coordinator and reports to Dr. Tinsley, I would say that Nancy and I probably talk to each other about 15 or 20 times a day because we work very closely together because she's working on actual enrollments. And I'm, of course, working with Lovejoy Scholars families and then just new families who are interested in the district. This year, we too also implemented a Lovejoy Scholars building or buying. So if you don't yet live in the district, but you're building or buying, you come through our office for that. And we have quite a number of, let's see, building in the district, we have 40 students, and buying in the district, we have 25.
And those are already enrolled?
They are already enrolled, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But they're not yet here. They're either building or buying. So Nancy and I work very closely together, and we talk very frequently throughout the day. So, and of course, I bring Mrs. Cordell up to date several times throughout the day. So we have a great communication plan in place.
It's important to note that these numbers do not include our early childhood numbers or our 18 plus transition programs.
Correct.
Sancy will be covering the early childhood numbers later this evening. And then, of course, the other ones, they would be indicated in our enrollment a little bit differently.
So any other questions about the elementary level? We'll take a look at Sloan Creek. Sloan Creek is 664 students currently. Willow Springs, 776. Whoops, I skipped one. Lovejoy High School, 1662. So I don't know off the top of my head what Sloan and Willow are built for, but I do know Lovejoy High School. Lovejoy High School can reach a capacity of 1,900 students. So there's plenty of room for growth at Lovejoy High School. And of course, our demographer doesn't predict that we'll ever get to that number. So total numbers across the district right now, we're sitting at 4,366. I think it is important for you to know that we budgeted on 4,374. So we do need 8 more enrollments to reach that number. And I feel like we're going to get there. Yeah. So.
And keep in mind that the target date for that, of course, we'd love that as soon as possible, but it's really snapshot in October.
Okay. Yeah.
Question.
Mhm.
When does it really matter?
Yes.
Do they give us the day of that, or is it just,
I'll let Dr. Duplessis.
sorry, not to steal the thunder? Yeah.
It's an important day.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you have a question?
No.
I'd be very happy to answer any other questions that y'all might have.
That was great, Stacy. Thank you.
Anything else?
Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Stace. Okay, item 10 is a report on the Carrie L. Lovejoy Child Development Center and Playground. This makes you Fuller.
Definitely very excited about the opportunity for the Child Development Center, and we were very purposeful in the name because, just bring everybody up to speed, we have infants all the way through pre-K4, but we also have our after-school academy. We really wanted to respect the students that were coming over from the 2 elementary campuses in Sloan Creek, and we did not want them to think they were coming to the baby school. So we're in the business of developing children. So, there we go. Our goal too, there's a couple of things that we're really excited about, and I'll talk through the timeline events because we've been on skates ever since the decision was made for the restructuring to get things up and running. But we are excited that the Child Development Center allows us definitely that early intervention and early support for children. We're excited to continue to develop a program that really becomes a model or a lighthouse program for other people to come and view and model after. Also, it's a nice opportunity for a pipeline into our kindergarten, our K4 program. And if you ever just need a day to just go, I need some fun stuff in my life, come over, because I'll show you some pictures, but there's a lot of really good stuff that's going on. So if you look at the timeline, April 25th was the decision that the board made for the restructuring. And then we started packing up. And as Mrs. Kraft and Mrs. Haynes shared, there were a lot of boxes and a lot of furniture that was going from campuses all over the place. June 15th through the 16th is really when we received everything at the center, and I can't speak highly enough about our custodial staff and our operations staff and Tina Thompson, who really helped coordinate all of that in a really quick turnaround for us to be able to have the items in place. What's a little bit unique, because we are licensed through the Texas Department of Health and Human Services, once we turn in an application for a license, we have 21 days to be able to get our license. And so the time was ticking. And luckily our licensing agent gave us a little bit more time, because if you look here, they came out on July 16th. So we had a month to really do a turnaround, clean everything out, and get things ready. And I wish we would have taken before pictures, because the one room that probably made the biggest overhaul and change was the infant room, and that was the art room. So you can imagine there was a lot of art that went on here at the K4 campus, and to see what it looks like, and there is a picture in here, it's definitely very warm and cozy for our infants to come in. We had our first Meet the Teacher event, and it went off well. That was actually last Thursday, and kids were not wanting to leave, and that's always a good sign that they were happy to be here. There were a few parent tears, but that's to be expected, but everyone had a really nice time. And then today was our first live day with students. And so I felt a little bit of the heartburn that Holly talked about, because we also were stressing about parking and people coming in and out of the building, because along with opening up for the Child Development Center, we also have staff children, because staff are in Academy Week, and so the school-age children, we're watching them as well. This summer has also been busy, so along with all of that, the center has also had summer camp, which means that's our after-school program, summer program, that we have had students all the way up until this week, and then we also had 3 weeks of summer enrichment. So there's been a lot of moving parts, but a lot of people have done great work to make it a good experience for students. So just a picture. This was a few pictures from our Meet the Teacher event from the 5th, and again, more tears from parents than kiddos, but this is the staff that is at the center that really helped to pull it off in a relatively short amount of time. They came up and put in a lot of time and effort to make it great for students. What I told Mrs. Cordell is the students had no idea the quick turnaround and all the blood, sweat, and tears. They had a great time, and that's really what we wanted for them. Here's a few pictures from the first day. Again, more tears from parents. We had a few students that had to have a little time to transition, but it was very short-lived, and 10 minutes after their parents left, they were in a good place. So, current enrollment numbers. So our center is licensed. We have a licensed capacity of 336. And what that means, so when licensing comes out, they look at a couple of things. They look at how many toilets you have, how many sinks you have, and square footage. And they put it in a formula, and that's how we get the number. But 336 really would allow us anywhere from infants all the way to age 12, because remember, we have the after school academy, and it's all under the same license. So you can see right now what our current enrollment numbers are. In our infant classroom are 9, toddlers are 6, our 2s are 9, pre-K 11, and pre-K 4, we actually have 3 classrooms, and that's why the numbers are higher there, which is pretty typical. A lot of that precursor going into kinder, making sure students are kinder ready. I'll show you the breakdown of what the ratios are, because we do follow licensing guidelines ratio. We are required to, because we are licensed by the state. And then right now our after school academy, which was formerly Kids First. So if you're wondering the correlation there, we have 58 students. That program is slowly gaining back momentum. We normally ran about 150, 180 students pre-COVID, and so really starting parents getting comfortable signing back up. We do feel like we'll see a rush once school starts, or right before, parents going, oh yeah, I need to go ahead and sign my student up. Marketing. So we definitely are working on trying to make sure that we're getting the word out. We're doing some work with Region 10 and working on brochures, some information that can go out electronic through social media. We do have the stand-up banisters that we have here in the center as well. And again, it was important to us when you look at the mascots that we use. Our after-school academy, we kept LJ, and again, kind of keeping a piece from the K4 campus. We felt like that was important, and we wanted to honor the school-age students that were coming over, but then using Lucy, who is cute, for our early childhood side of the house. And the 2 students, the 2 pictures on the child development side of the house are actually students that are in our program. So if you see them, you're like, they look familiar. They are. Curriculum-wise, we normally get this question. So what are you using to support the development of the children in your care? And we're using the Frog Street Press curriculum, which is nice. We're using it from infants all the way through pre-K 4. So they are able to build upon those developmental milestones starting from the infants through. And then the pre-K 4 follows the Texas pre-K guidelines. And those are the precursor guidelines to school, to kindergarten. So you hear us talk about TEKS on the K-12 side of the house. Pre-K guidelines are the precursor ones. So staff are really excited. There's a lot of rich instruction, fun hands-on. We'll also be including STEAM in our curriculum. There's also social skills opportunities, because at this age, really learning how to get along and collaboratively work together, that's also built into the curriculum as well. I did give you an additional handout that Stacy provided, and so the pink does show what rooms are currently being occupied for the Child Development Center. Again, that's a mixture not only from the early childhood side, but also the after school academy side of the house. And we, as you look in there, we have room for growth. Now, we do also have staff that are housed at the center as well. Student nutrition is here, and they've been a blessing to have for us, because we have lunches that are going to our students. Curriculum instruction, definitely that partnership is important, and the work that they will be doing with reading academies. The foundation has a space here in the center. And then we also have a room that's set aside for our dyslexia teacher training center. And so we're in our second year for that particular program, working on our certification to be able to continue and expanding training teachers who want to become certified academic language therapists. So they have a model classroom here as well. This is the infant classroom. So this is the one that if you ever came to, this was Lovejoy Elementary, this was the art room. And so again, it's amazing space for the little ones to have fun and be nurtured and taken care of. If you look at our classroom ratio, there's a 1 to 4 or a 2 to 10. And so if you see where we're at right now, we have 9 students enrolled. We have one that's pending. We're pending paperwork, but we are getting close to being full. The way our classrooms are staffed, we do have a lead teacher that comes in. So from 6:45 in the morning till 3:45, the assistant teacher comes in at 9 o'clock, and the assistant teacher is here until 6 o'clock, because the center is open from 7 in the morning till 6 at night. So just from staffing pieces. Here's our toddler classroom. That's a ratio to 1 to 9, and we currently have 6 students, so we do have some room for growth. A 2-year-old classroom, and that's a 1 to 11, and we have 9 students. Our pre-K 3, and we're 1 to 15, and we have 11. We do have, in the update that you guys get every Thursday, we do put in there if there's packets. So that means someone has contacted, they're interested in the program. We've sent them an enrollment packet. They've just not sent it back yet. So we try to keep that updated. Similar to what Stacy was sharing, those numbers fluctuate from week to week, sometimes from day to day. And then our pre-K 4, we currently have 3 pre-K 4 classrooms, and the classroom ratio is a 1 to 18. In our pre-K 4 and 3 classrooms, we also serve students who you'll hear us say ECSE, that's Early Childhood Special Education, which was prior to the center opening up. We serve students in ECSE at Hart Elementary, so we continue that, and definitely have a great opportunity for age-appropriate inclusion and with their typically developing peers. So our current playground areas, so you heard me talk about licensing, and there's this unique intersection with the center that we have. There's the school side of the house and things that's important from Lovejoy ISD and that we have to follow. And we also have a foot in the door of licensing, and it's called minimum standards. And so part of minimum standards is you cannot mix age levels together. So toddlers have their own section that they would go to play, infants, our pre-K, and then our after-school academy. And so right now, as you see, we have some temporary fencing to help manage the groups when they're outside. We do have other toys that we put out there for them to play on. We have to take them in and out right now because we are noticing that there are some community, I'm assuming there are kids that come over after hours and play on the little people's items, and sometimes things are getting destroyed. And so we're trying to manage that and still allow a good experience for our children at the center. So one of the things that well, let me back up. Current school age playground area. This is if you've been out there, this is what's already in place that was here when this was a campus. This is appropriate for the after school program, but it's not aged for students who are in the early childhood center. And again, minimum standards, actually we have to provide them with the documentation that shows what a playground equipment is aged for. And so there is one piece, there's a climbing wall that's on the back side of this that actually it's too tall for minimum standards that we can't allow them to be on. So those are just some things that as they come out and inspect that we have to be mindful of in supporting with standards. If in fact that you aren't following minimum standards, the district center is cited. That's put on the website of whatever the citing is. So what we're proposing for consideration, this is a picture of what is at Puster Elementary, and this playscape actually is normed for 3 to 5 years old. We would like something this or similar to be able to be placed here at the center to be able to use for the pre-K group. What you'll find is the playscape, but there's also some nice standalone items to play on that also allows for inclusivity. And so if you notice here, there's a ramp that comes up to this particular playscape, and this is called a pour in place material that's right here. And so if a student, there was some mobility issues, that they still were able to partake in playing with their friends, they could roll their wheelchair, or if they were on particular crutches or a stander, different things like that, they still would be able to access and enjoy time with their friends. So that definitely is a need. It's not something that we have right now. We did look at trying to move the playscape area that's at Hart Elementary, thinking the portables will go away. Can we move that? It actually has some damage to it that there was concern. Number one, it probably would not make the move. Number two, the cost to replace the damaged item was more than really what it's about 15 to 18 years old is what I was told on the actual equipment that's over there. I know from Puster perspective and talking
How old?
I think he said it was 15 to 18. Not sure exactly because I wasn't in on the original purchase of that, but he said that particular one that's at Hart is no longer being built anymore.
Is there warranties on those things? They last so long and then you
Well,
need to replace and all that?
Yes, I would imagine that we are outside that with that time frame.
So currently this one, I know Kinder uses this at the Puster campus. It's right outside of the Kinder wing area for them to come out. And again, you do roll kind of the dice of trying to move anything of how much it's going to stay together or number one, what the cost is, but number two, any damage in movement. So there's a couple of options to consider. If you look at what we have at Puster is actually this poured in place rubber. There is an option that the board could consider if the wood fiber, to me, it's wood chips. I think it's a fancy name that they've thrown out, wood fiber. They tried to give me a little bit of loose guidelines that there's no lead paint in it and it has a little bit of more give. But when you think about inclusivity and allowing students who, again, with mobility, any mobility areas that we need to look at, this is definitely, it does meet ADA compliance, but it definitely is still difficult to be able to maneuver even with the ramp in there. So pros and cons of the engineered wood fiber. It is cheaper. It does meet the ASTM standard for critical fall height. It may allow you to put more value in the playground equipment. Does not retain heat like the man-made surface. Of course, on the con side, the wood can decomposes over time and can float. So when we have a lot of rain, you're going to see that it's not staying in place. It has to be replaced every year, so there's a cost to that of keeping it and maintaining it. And someone coming out and making sure that really, as whether it's rain or just kids digging, making sure that any of the low spots are maintained and covered up. And then here's the pros and cons of poured in place rubber. Again, it does meet the ASTM 1292 for critical fall heights, as well as for F1951 for ADA accessibility guidelines. Very little maintenance unless drinks and foods are spilled on it, and the surface stays level, unlike the wood fiber. So again, when you think, and even without student mobility, sometimes our little people, as they're still developing gross motor wise, and so that is an uneasy surface that they're on. The cons, it is an initial higher cost on the front end. It's a man-made product, and it does retain heat, and it may have to be top coated after 7 to 10 years.
Nancy?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know, is there a warranty with this poured in place rubber? I'm just remembering when we were talking about turf and or whatever the technical term is, for the stuff that we got that 30-year warranty when we didn't use wood. Is there something like that for this pour in place?
I'm assuming so, but I'm not 100% sure, but I can definitely check on
That might help us feel better about spending more
The
if
cost
something's
between
out
the two.
there. I mean, I'd be curious to know.
Absolutely.
Sounds like, I mean, just like you would, if you're $2 a square foot, but you're having to redo it every single year.
Right.
So times 7 years, even at the bottom of this top coat, that would equal to basically paying $14 a square foot over that time.
Dr.
Versus do it right the first time. And that's why everybody goes to turf sports,
Yeah.
right?
Dr. Duplessis mentioned too that getting a dump truck back there will be a challenge annually as well. So something to think about as well.
Well,
I feel like I remember that when all that was happening. So, okay.
I'll look and see.
Yeah,
the warranty
it just might make us feel a little more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other part too, we would, if you notice, we have the temporary orange fencing up. It's not aesthetically very nice, but it's containing kiddos right now. We would want to look at fencing, but again, depending on the direction and the will of the board, if we're going to do some construction back there, we would not want to put up anything permanent until that's determined. Another consideration, and this evidently is fairly new in the world of playground type of equipment. If the board wanted to consider, I've not done a lot of research on it, but if we wanted to look at one of the sectioned off areas for the 6 month to 23 months, there are some age normed equipment that could be built in as well, similar to what you saw on the pre-K, the age 3 to 5. It's just normed for a different age. Any questions on the early childhood side of the house that, as I've gone through? So After School Academy, like I said before, we have 58 students enrolled. We will utilize the gym, the cafeteria, the computer lab. So there's 2 computer labs that were already here on the campus, and we'll continue to use those, as well as that outside playground area that's known for the after-school side of the house. We definitely, students that need some additional homework help, they'll have that while they are here on school days. And again, none of this would be possible without the help of all of the people that made that short timeline, that condensed timeline that I started out with work. Our operations department, our custodial employees, our maintenance employees, Tina Thompson. Tina was very integral in coordinating the moves between the campuses, making sure boxes and furniture got moved from one place to the other. Our center employees that came in, and when licensing comes, I failed to show this, when they come, the room has to be ready as if kids were arriving that day. So it's not just they're coming to look at what space, they're also looking at what your setup looks like, what is line of sight, can you see students, depending on how you set a center up, you have good line of sight of all of the students in the classroom. And so they definitely look at a critical eye, which they should. So they were here definitely putting the finishing touches. Our student nutrition department, definitely asking them to pivot. So just one thing that's unique for them is school for K-12 doesn't start till next week. So their mind is, I don't start lunches until then. We started today. And so they were doing a great job pivoting and making sure that we had lunches and a menu ready to serve all of the students. And then our technology department and Jack and his group, always with a happy heart, are just there to help and support the work. So again, it's been definitely a group effort to make it work.
Can I ask, I'm trying to figure out, I'm putting on my PTA hat from when my kids were here. The library is not occupied, is that correct?
It's not yet. That's a great question.
I'm just
So-
curious the plans for the library.
Absolutely.
I was here when they were kind of packing and inviting people to come get books to take to other schools, and so.
Absolutely, great question. So a couple of things. We will have to have licensing come back out for a couple of things. So the garden area that's between the administration building and the center, it needs a lot of tender loving care, and so that we'll have to do the work first. We'll have them come out, and that will be counted into our usage area, because we really, there's a lot of science opportunities and a lot of opportunities, read alouds outside when the weather's nice. The library had a lot of stuff in it when licensing came. And again, the custodial staff have been great at starting to clean that out. We actually will have library time in there, but it was not originally counted in our square footage piece. But it'll also be open for meetings as well, for training. So it's going to be a little bit of a universal space. We will have dedicated library time. So that will be on the schedule. And then if someone needs it really outside of that for scheduling.
Perfect.
And then the only other change that we've made since they came out on the 16th is I'm definitely trying to be mindful, because it is a shift in thinking with the center with a lot of kids in here, is bathrooms and where do adults go when they're in the building versus students. And so we have shifted one of the student bathrooms and made that an adult-only bathroom and put some signs up. But as I said earlier, because they look at toilet sinks and square footage, that will adjust a little bit, but we'll get some on the library side potentially and in the garden. So I'm not concerned it's going to shift too much, but we do want to make sure that adults are not going in with students, and that we have enough bathroom usage for whether it's after school or early childhood. Great question. Yes,
Another question on capacity. So the licensing, it looks like we're somewhere a little bit less than 50% overall on what we're licensed for. But I know we don't have twice as many available rooms. So does that mean some of these rooms could just add another instructor and add kids to those same classrooms that are currently zoned that way? Or would you be repurposing some of the rooms that are taken by other departments, or how does that work?
So there are some rooms already at the center that there's nothing in them at this
point.
So
there are some empty rooms not
Absolutely.
being utilized.
And back where, the very back where most of the early childhood is, we actually have one room that's already outfitted. In the event we need to go live, we felt like it's highly likely it'll probably be a pre-K3 or maybe a pre-K3-4 blended room. So it's already ready. Down the other end of the hall, there's a specials room and there is a gross motor room. Those could be shifted down to F Hall and those made into instructional space. So we have a plan just as numbers continue to warrant. So we do have definitely room for growth. Great question.
One other, sorry, just thinking of olden days. Gathering spot and leopard spot, are those still the same for meetings and things, or did you put those in with the early childhood?
So gathering spot will be a meeting space. We have it, so in the event of something unique happens in a room, or the weather's unique and we have to kind of get everybody in one spot. So it is a little bit of a universal room still. Leopard spot, we are using that for DAP, and so what the nice piece about that particular room, there's a door to the outside, so really the students or the staff don't have to go through the center. They actually can use that outside door that used to be the entrance.
Yeah.
Several years ago. And then what the lounge that connects to that room is actually our Lovejoy transition program. And that's our students who are 18 plus that are still working on IEP goals and objectives. They're not here very often, but they initially start in that classroom setting working on post-secondary goals. A lot of times cooking, independent self-care, because that work is not only done in that classroom setting, it's also done in the community and in their home. So they were paired together out in the portables right next to one another with the AP before we moved it back in.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So is there anybody left in the portables?
HR,
Okay.
because we are still getting their space cleaned up and
Yes.
ready to go from the winter storm.
Right.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Up there is
Yes.
still being worked on. Okay. Is that all that's in the portable now?
I think we're
Yes, everybody
down
else
to
is
just HR. And a lot of happy faces as they move in
Yeah.
to their new
that's what I'm
spaces.
thinking. Yeah, great.
I want to thank Ms. Fuller and her team. This has been just a remarkable effort, and they had a virtually impossible timeline. Typically, when something like this is being done, there's at least a 12-month lead time. So to do it really in a month and a half is a miracle. They worked day and night and weekend, and it is beautiful. I would encourage you all to go look when you have the opportunity. The classrooms are so, I keep saying they're so clean and warm and inviting, just really an incredible space for some of our youngest learners. Thank you.
Thank you for all you did.
so
That's
much.
awesome. That's well done. Okay, item 11 is report on transportation routes and riders. Ms. Lewis.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to measure the room a little to give you kind of an, wall to wall. Buses are bigger than this, just so you know.
I thought she was walking the plank. I didn't know
No.
what was happening there.
No, I'm sorry. All right, transportation. I know you're going to have a lot of questions, so if you want to just let me get through everything and then ask away, that would work for me. So transportation this year, we have our mission statement ready. It's make a positive impact on students while in the pursuit of excellence in efficient, effective, and caring transportation. Keep in mind, efficient and effective are not always going to go together. Having the most efficient sometimes is not going to be as effective, and being the most effective is not going to be as efficient. But we're going to pursue that avenue and add caring to everything we do. We have the most incredible group of drivers that are still with us. And if you take all of their years of experience, and there are 17 that are still driving with us right now, it's over 86 years of experience at Lovejoy ISD. There's more experience that they've had before they came to Lovejoy, but that's what we've got right now. And they are amazing. They love those kids, and they want to do everything they can for them, and they're there for them, and they care about their families, and they are invested 100% in Lovejoy is what we have, which is wonderful. The driver status right now is the main issue that I wanted to bring to your attention. We have 22 driver positions. Of those 22, we have 7 openings. That's a big shortage on what we expect. And you can see that we've got 15 drivers. They are in the driver spot. They are drivers that have CDLs. We have 2 support staff that usually work in the office and drive as subs. They will be driving because we don't have an option. We have 5 aides. They don't have CDLs and they don't drive. Okay. We have 1 support that's non-CDL. She drives one of the sped buses. And we have a mechanic and myself that have CDLs and will be driving. We barely are going to make it this beginning of the year. We have, of course, we have 14, you didn't know this, we have 14 routes. I shortened it to 13 in the morning. That gives us a little wiggle. 13 in the morning, we have more riders in the afternoons that have signed up only for PM service. So we need all 14 routes in the afternoon. In addition to that, we have 5 sped buses that are going to be running. One of those we can consolidate a little bit sometimes. and we will if we have to. We'd like to run all 5, morning and afternoon. That would be optimal. But again, we're having contingency plans, and this is what we're going to have to do. And then we have 2 shuttle buses that run just like a route bus. It's a route. It's the same time period as a route. And it goes from campus to campus to campus to campus and doubles back to campus. It drops off the kids that come here after school. It drops off kids that go and meet other siblings at other schools. So the parent only has to go to one campus. It also has kids that live in that general area of that school, and they want to be dropped off there instead of being taken to their stop because it's too far from their house or whatever their reasoning is. And then it's got, just kids that are in after school care and that sort of thing. So a lot of students that are in shuttles as well. And we are juggling those. We are not quite finished. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be done with our shuttles for the afternoon, and we'll be able to give people times and send them emails and let them know these are the times that the shuttles are going to arrive. We've had kids added, taken away. I've had calls all week just already over the weekend, people saying, oh, I thought I added them and they weren't added. And I understand the confusion and I understand everything, but it's just taking us a little longer to make up for that. Okay. One more thing. I anticipate that if we are able to hire 6 drivers for the 7 spots, I can start another route. My staff can be subs like they need to be for anyone that's out, sickness, doctor appointments. My mechanic can actually just be a mechanic. If we have 6 drivers that are hired, I can add another route, and that will alleviate a lot of issues right now. We can increase the stops on the existing bus routes that we have. We can stop more house to house, a little bit closer, because we can increase those because we're not going to be on such a time constraint. Also, we'll be able to lengthen the pickup time a little bit. So instead of our first pickup at 6:43 or 6:44, we can wait until 6:50 and pick up the first child or student. So it will alleviate a lot if we're able, and the capacity as well of each bus, if we are able to add another route. But at this time, we can't. If we want to transport everyone, we have to give on some things. And that's the situation we're in at this time. And the shortage is nationwide. It's not just Lovejoy. Allen is short. Princeton is short. Every director that I've called to talk about, what are you paying your employees? How is that going? Are you short as well? How many bus drivers do you need? They all are hurting for bus drivers, and they're all having to come up with contingency plans, and they're all having to do the exact same thing that we're doing until we can get that. And why? I've read several articles. Why are we so short? Well, COVID, a lot of the drivers that were doing bus driving went on to do other things. They went to Amazon, they went to FedEx, they have other delivery jobs, they found other things that they can use their CDL. So we're either having to bring in and train, which we will do, or we're trying to take from other places, or people that are retired, have a CDL, didn't think they'd ever use it again, and they love kids, come and join us and have fun. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to serve your community, see the kids, see the families. It's fun. I love it. Transporting kids is one of the best things in the world. So a typical driver's day, just so that you know, we clock in around 6:30 in the morning. We pick up our kids around 6:45 or a little later, depending on the route, how many kids, how many stops, that sort of thing. We push it back as far as we can, but that's the situation we're in. We clock out around 8:50, and that's after we do a morning run, which is the elementary and intermediate school, and then they have about 10 minutes in between to take care of whatever they need to, sanitize, whatever they need to do in between routes. And if the route is running late, that's their time that they can be a little late on that route. That's their window. And then they start their middle school and high school runs. So they've got 2 routes in the morning and 2 routes in the afternoon. There's sometimes middle of the day routes as well, usually for SPED kids, and those are special occasion. And then we're still discussing, whether we can do shuttles or not based on the amount of drivers we have. We know that there are a lot of athletics that would like us to shuttle their students, and we just don't know at this point if we're going to be able to accommodate that. There are a lot of coaches that have CDLs, and so they are able to do that if we can't, but they're also teachers. So we're trying to work within what we have at this point. Average, they work about 5 hours and 20 minutes. They clock back in around between 2 and 2:15, depending. And then they leave the lot at 2:30 to get to to Sloan Creek. They all line up at Sloan Creek to start. That's their beginning school. And again, there will be 16 buses out there in front of Sloan Creek. They pick up the students, or they drop off the students around, or pick up at around 2:50, and then they drop off as they go. They go to the elementary school from Sloan Creek first, and they'll split. Some will go to Puster and some will go to Hart. And then the shuttles will also split and deliver kids to both campuses. When they're done taking those kids home, there's not a lot of time in between because there's a lot of kids and a lot of stops already. And so adding more stops to do house to house is almost an impossibility, because then they've got to be back at the middle school at a certain period of time, because they are literally going to pull up as the kids are coming out of school at the middle school. So everything that delays them dropping off those kids from the intermediate and elementary schools pushes back the middle school kids and then the high school. So that's the situation we're in. We want to appreciate, I cannot thank you enough for going to hourly pay for us. That was a huge issue for a lot of the drivers. We are the only district that I know of in the state that still was doing by the route pay. And on average, working 5 hours and 20 minutes and being paid for 4 routes, they weren't making as much as anyone else in the area. So now it's at least competitive. So we're really excited that hopefully we'll be able to find some new drivers. I wanted to share with you the history of the bus, what we've had lately with as far as riders go. In 2019-20, before COVID hit, we had 2,600 students registered to ride a bus. They didn't always ride, but they were registered and it was free. So they registered. There were 21 routes. There were 4 sped routes and 1 shuttle bus. Last year, they ended up starting with 7 buses. Very few students rode any of the buses. But by the end of last year, in May, there were 877 students that were registered. They had 12 routes, but at a very low capacity. And they had 6 sped routes and 2 shuttle buses. So moving forward this year, we have 1,312 students. As of yesterday, we have 1,318 today. I checked it again. We have 13 to 14 route buses. Like I said, 13 in the morning, 14 in the afternoon. There are 266 more children that just signed up for afternoon service. So we have a little wiggle room in the morning, which is why I took out that 1 route so that my mechanic doesn't have to drive in the morning if at all possible. And then 5 sped route buses and 2 shuttle buses for this year. The current stats, if you look at the combined mileage scheduled for this year with the 21 buses that will be rolling every day, we'll be rolling over 1,105 miles a day. That's picking up, dropping off, returning to base at the end of the day. The AM and PM cumulative routes have over 1,051 stops right now. And I can't reiterate enough. More stops mean more time. And I don't want the kids on there longer than they need to be. I already have some routes that are up to an hour in the afternoon. So, you know, that the kids aren't on there the whole time. The elementary kids would be on there longer because we picked the intermediate kids are on there longer. We pick them up first. So if you factor in that 15-minute period of time between schools and then picking up the next, it's like a 35, 40-minute ride for the intermediate students. But that's your hour. Bus capacity this year, it depends on the area, and it ranges between 95% and 21%, average of 51% capacity on all of the buses. So there is room on the buses, on most of them. There are a couple of areas, especially back here behind Lovejoy Elementary, formerly Lovejoy Elementary, where everyone's being bused over to their new school. And so there are huge loads there. But more rural areas, it's just driving time. It's just a lot of time to get out there and then go into every street that has been created just recently, new construction, in and out, trying to pick up kids at one centralized location for that neighborhood. We have 35 buses, so you can see we have plenty of buses. The buses are not a problem, and they do have seat belts, and we do expect our students to wear them. We also will have seating charts this year, and they will be kept and maintained. We will have, all of the campuses will have the seating charts for any kind of COVID exposure, anything like that. They will know who was around that student on the bus. We will have windows slightly opened. We will take every precaution that we can. We'll be sanitizing between, but we have 35 buses, plenty of buses. We just need drivers. We have 7 sped buses, and our white fleet vehicles, we have 6 of them. We are pay to ride this year. I've had a couple of questions about this. Some people thought that if it was their first year here, they didn't have to pay at all. The main thing on that was that they wouldn't have to pay a $25 fee if they were just registering, because there's a $25 fee for late registration for buses. So I haven't put that into place yet because most people don't know. It's just still new. It's just still new for them. So next year, maybe that would be something that would be a little bit more plausible. But right now, we've got, you can pay monthly, by semester, and annually. I have not put in the fees in PowerSchool yet because I'm still routing them. Like I said, another 5 today and a lot over the weekend. And with convocation and everything this morning, I haven't gotten to everyone. But once they're routed, I will be doing the fees this week, and that will show up on PowerSchool, and it'll send them an email that there's a balance on their PowerSchool account, and that's how they'll know. And they also have I've sent out emails. If they didn't receive an email, I'm getting a call that they weren't registered, or I didn't have their email in the system. And again, there's a $700 cap per family. So I had 5 children, all within 8 years. We would have definitely used the cap. This is my advertisement. We are hiring. It's a great place to work. Beautiful views. You can see Lucas is amazing. The trees and the different colors of green in the leaves, and you know, just a wonderful environment. Sweet children's voices you can hear in the background saying the funnest, sweetest things. It's a wonderful environment, wonderful people that you'll get to work with. We pay $20 an hour, guaranteed 5 hours a day. So you're walking home with $100 a day, no matter what. And then if you work over that, which you most likely will, at least a little bit, you'll continue to get paid for that. And then we provide the training, and we'll help you get your CDL. And then you can call me and let me know. And I am Dee Lewis. I'm the director.
On that last slide, so training assistants to get your CDL, so they don't have to formally have it yet.
No, if they come into us, we can help them get it.
Okay. How long and what does that cost typically for them?
For them, it doesn't cost anything.
Okay.
It's on us.
Okay.
We want them to come. We want to teach them. We need their driving. We need it.
Yep.
So it is a process, especially with the wait lines to get tested and to even go in and take your CDL tests. There's a series of 5 tests involved. You study the CDL. Once you've taken your tests, you can get your learner's permit, commercial learner's permit. Once you've got that, you come in and we'll pay you by the hour to come in and drive the bus. We'll teach you the pre-trip. We're going to max it out at a certain amount of hours, which we haven't determined yet. We're still talking about that, but we will help them and give them everything that they need to get it. You know, it's a great thing to have. You can use your CDL for different things. You can drive a garbage truck with a CDL, you know, and with a Class B. And you go in and you get your school bus and your passenger endorsements, and you're good to go. You can drive any bus. You guys have any questions?
I have another, sorry.
The benefits, you said wages plus benefits?
Yeah, we have the same benefits as anyone that works for Lovejoy, which are wonderful. We get some medical paid, you know, I believe it's around $240, $245 that goes towards our medical. So if you're older and you've retired from a previous position and you need medical benefits, awesome job. And, you know, the kids love people that have experience in other places, and we love it too. I've learned so much from people that used to be engineers or they used to work in retail, and they have the best stories, and we'll all sit around and talk about it, you know. But yeah, you can take whatever experience you have and put it towards, you know, working for Lovejoy as a bus driver. Yeah, the benefits are great. You get life insurance. You have wonderful HR to work with, new friends. It's great.
Do you ever well, you're new. I don't know what our history is as far as retention during the school year or relative to other districts. Is that an issue typically, or where bus drivers kind of come and go and they don't necessarily wait till the end of the year to leave? Is that an issue here?
It is an issue, with everyone. I don't believe it has been at Lovejoy. Most of the drivers, like I said, they have been here a long time. We lost quite a few over the summer. A lot of that, my understanding of what they told me when they resigned, was the pay. So there's definitely a retention issue, but it could be resolved in a myriad of ways. I really value my drivers, and I'm going to make sure that they know they are extremely important. I think that's a big part of it. I read an article when I was, finishing up with my master's degree about how important is salary? How important is the pay? And they did a study, and it wasn't as important as you might think. It's not the money, it's how you make them feel. And if you make them feel and know that they are valued and important, and you're listening to them, and you would do anything for them within the bounds that you have, then they'll want to stay. And that's what I'm banking on.
Agree. It's also nice to make sure that we are market competitive and that we're putting as much out there to incent them to come to Lovejoy, because they may be living in a district right around us or living in our district going to drive somewhere else. So while I agree, culture is extremely important without question. They need to feel valued. We want to make sure we're paying competitively and do whatever we can do to incent referrals even right now. Even if we have to pay a little bit extra out of pocket up front to get somebody to go, oh, I've got a great driver. I need to talk to them about this Lovejoy job, and or even a small, could be small, but a retention bonus. So you stay through the end of the year with great marks and you do great things, then we're going to match 5 of your days, right? Or something like that. I'm not talking about big dollars here. Talking about small dollars, but if it's an issue of being able to retain people through the year so that we're not put in, because like you said, we're on that's tight. That means everybody who can possibly drive a bus is driving a bus.
She's driving.
That's an issue,
Yeah,
right?
She's
So
driving, the boss is driving.
we got to keep who we've got. We've got to bring more people on, and we can't lose anybody.
Exactly.
So that's what we got to figure out.
I agree, and I'm up for any suggestions. We did talk about bonuses and things like that, and we pushed forward, the pay increase that you can see. I would love that. If you guys want to be that generous, I would love that. That would help me a lot to bring more people in. We did offer our employees a referral bonus, and we've already gotten one that was very interested. That's what we can do, collaboratively as a group. We can definitely do that. I personally, as the director, can't do that. That would have to be approved through you all. But yeah, I agree with you. It is an issue. Coming from another district, I just found out as I called some of my bus driver friends, hoping to pull them over, that district is offering a $500 retention for if they go till Christmas. And I don't know how we can compete with that at this point with just getting the pay increase that you guys so generously approved. But yes, it's definitely anything that you can, vote on and get pushed through for me would help me a lot. I agree. But since I don't have that at my disposal personally, I'm going to go for the culture route.
Control what you can control.
Exactly.
Right? I 100% agree with that. And then you guys, work together to, it's at the end of the day, we got to get kids there safely and as efficiently as we can. And obviously busing has been an issue in our district for the last few years. So let's do everything we can to help remedy as much as we can in as reasonable way as we can. So take one step was let's raise the pay. Yes.
Yes.
But now I think we just something to think about.
So
I appreciate that.
I had a thought too, just to kind of piggyback on that. Any of the teachers that we have that have retired, if any of them have a CDL, I don't know if there's a way we can search or be proactive with those folks. Hey, we've got everyone driving, including the mechanic. Is there any way you'd be willing just until we get through the hump, you know, whatever, reaching out to those folks. I mean, you never know, they have retired, but if they loved being in Lovejoy and they have that CDL, maybe there would be that compassion that they might want to come back and help us out until we can get. I don't know, it's a
That's a
thought.
great idea.
And then following up with those that we did lose, I don't know where they went, but hey, did you know we have now approved this? It's a priority. I mean, you may have already done that. I'm
We
just
have.
thinking.
Yeah,
okay.
no, I appreciate that. We did get a few names of teachers that have retired. So far, it's always, it's been a no.
Yeah.
They're not interested. But you know, anybody that is suggested or we'll call them, we'll keep trying. We're doing what we can, you know, HR and I, and Mrs. Cordell have been working together on doing advertising. Once the $20 an hour was passed, we've got signs in the works, banners. We're going to try to get the word out there. This is an opportunity at this Zoom meeting to also get the word out that we need help. We would love some more drivers. If you're interested, come on board. It's going to be great. I can't emphasize enough how fun it is. I
want
love
to
it.
drive, but I don't have mine. So, hey.
Well,
And you wouldn't want to see that.
Hey, they'll help you.
I can barely go in my SUV, much less a bus.
We're there
But I'm
for you.
motivated. You make me want to.
Yeah, no, it is wonderful. Are there any questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Okay, item 12 is a report on COVID planning from the floor.
Before I start on COVID, just two things on transportation. Just want to make sure that it's clear for any student who receives services through special education and the ARD committee has determined they need that. There is not a cost to the student or the family. So we call that special transportation, but I just want to make sure that that's clear, that there is not a cost. And then for students coming to the after-school academy, that is a different transfer bus where they come over here for the after-school program. So just to be clear. Well, it has been a little busy for us around health and safety measures, getting ready for the school year. We're continuing to monitor everything that's going on from information that we get from the Texas Education Agency, and we had some information that was finally released last Thursday, looking at what our local health authorities are providing for the CDC. And we know that this is what we know right now, but it definitely is probably going to continue to change, and we'll adjust as accordingly, looking at what's in place and what information we're being updated through TEA and really what our data looks like. We also have shared our current health and safety measures with our medical advisory board. And even with that group, there's a continuum of where people fall in their thoughts around the protocols. And so we are definitely trying to look at all of the information and make the best decision. Governor Abbott's executive order is really what districts are to be following around face coverings. And Dallas ISD stepped out there today and did something a little bit unique if you have not seen the news, and they are requiring visitors, staff, and students to wear face coverings, which actually defies the governor's order. From our understanding, the violation for that is a monetary violation. Not sure if it's a per day occurrence, a per student impact, but there is a monetary violation for going against the governor's order. So the district, and even our previous presentations, we are required to follow the executive order, at least at this time, unless he gives us the latest and greatest. And that really allows individuals to make a choice if they want to wear a face covering. And then as a district, we're going to respect and honor whether someone's choice is to wear a face covering or not to wear a face covering. And our campus administrators, definitely that's on their radar, because we want to make sure that no one feels that they're being treated a different way, whether they wear a face covering or not wear a face covering. And that's whether it's staff, students, or visitors to any of our facilities. Mitigating measures definitely are going to be important to continue as we look at addressing our health and safety measures. And so things that we want to continue to keep in place. If someone, number one, if someone's sick, stay home. So first and foremost, whether that's staff, students or visitors, and we'll talk about some things that we have in place on the campuses. But we want to make sure that hand washing frequent, whether it's soap and water, whether it's hand sanitizing, that's happening. And that's really best practice just in general, whether we're talking about COVID-19 or the flu or anything else. And so students and staff will still have access to hand sanitizers, soap stations, so none of that has gone away. The campuses do have PPE materials on their campus to be able to use their, it's a particular hand sanitizer that the principal said they like. It's evidently it's pretty liquidy, but they put it in a spray bottle and that's what they help to use to clean. And we also have wipes that will be used throughout the day. Teachers will continue to make sure that they're disinfecting in between classes. Depending on the age, that would be the teacher doing it, or if they're of older age grade level, then the students will help with that. Again, just best practices. We want to keep everybody well. Our custodial staff will continue to disinfect, and so they were definitely very integral when we were face-to-face last year. And really what that means is during the school day, the high-touch areas, light switch, doorknobs, the crash bars on the doors, that they're continuing to wipe those down. Those are traffic areas that we're seeing a lot. But what they'll also do at night in the Clorox 360 machines that has a disinfecting component to that they'll make sure that they are doing that, which is part of what their normal routine. If in fact we find out that there has been a lab positive case on the campus and say a student was symptomatic and they were able to get a test really quick, our custodial staff definitely know we will disinfect that room as soon as we know, making sure we take care of the students that are in there and try not to displace and create too much chaos for them. So monitoring students, staff, and visitors will continue to have the expectation that people stay home if they're ill. If they have any symptoms that really are outside of what their normal symptoms are. Exclusionary symptoms have always been fever, vomiting, and diarrhea. That has always been, if you have those, that you're out for at least 24 hours or until the symptoms subside. But you would look at the same way for COVID-19 symptoms, and actually they have recently just been added to exclusionary, the COVID symptoms, and to exclusionary factors that nurses can use that using their best judgment for students to stay out until their symptoms subside. And that be part of one of the exclusionary factors. Visitors to campus facilities during the school day will be asked to complete a check-in. We'll have QR codes that you're able just to scan with your phone and do, if you're a visitor to the campus, to do just a self-check. I'm just checking, do I have any symptoms? If not, I'm good. We definitely want our campuses to be open for parents and visitors to be in there. But if for some reason they came back and they needed to report that they are symptomatic, principals at least know kind of the areas where they were at and where can we disinfect, or who are the people that they were there on the campus to see. So you'll see those on all of the doors. If someone does not have access to a phone to be able to do a QR code, there'll be hard copies at the front desk and the receptionist can help. I'm going to shift just a little bit. Stacy gave you a one-pager, and a lot of what the next few slides are in this one flow chart nutshell, and it's probably a little easier to go through and less wording. So if you look at symptomatic on the flow chart that you guys have, it's really looking, again, any of the symptoms. Again, none of these are anything that are not anything that you've seen before, any of the potential COVID-19 symptoms. If someone is experiencing anything that's outside of their norms, this is really the pathway. We would ask them to stay home, and they have a couple of options that they would be fever-free for 24 hours without using fever-reducing medication. They have improved symptoms. 10 days have passed since the symptoms began. So that's one option if they're symptomatic. Again, symptoms that are outside of what their norm are. Or they can obtain an acute infection test PCR is preferred, but students have the option of doing PCR or a rapid test. Or a doctor can provide a note when alternate diagnosis. So there's 3 different pathways to get back. Again, if you have symptoms that are really outside of the norm, that really are symptoms that align with COVID-19, to be able to get back into the school setting. Again, making sure that you're coming back symptom-free, but a doctor can either, again, provide an alternate diagnosis. You can get a test that shows you're negative, or a parent can choose, again, that's their choice of the 10 days with no symptoms. On the left-hand side of that same sheet that you guys have are the positive cases. And so really nothing has changed from the pathway that we were working under last year. As soon as we find out that an individual has received a positive test, they're going to stay home. They would need to be fever-free for 24 hours without using any fever-reducing medication. We want them to have improved symptoms. Coughing does continue even after recovering from COVID, but it's not the same as when you were truly in the midst of it. So they may still have some residual cough, but definitely our nurses will check and make sure that it's just really more residual. And then 10 days have passed since symptoms have begun, or a positive test if symptomatic. So really we look at two things depending on that 10 days. If they were symptomatic, we look at the 2 days prior to the symptoms starting, right? If not, if they were asymptomatic, we would look at the day of their positive test. And that's really where that 10-day pathway starts. So we have a system that happens on the campus. As soon as we find out that there is a positive case, our nurses and our campus administrators go into action. They have a tracking system that lets them know where were they at, what was the date that they received the test, and really that allows us to know when their 10-day timeline starts. What's different for us this year is really around exposure. So last year we were having to go and do pretty in-depth close contact exposure, and that was initially the job of the health department, but they were overloaded. So really we had campus administrators. So Ms. Haynes and Mrs. Kraft were trying to figure out who was 6 feet apart and who was around and who wasn't around. And really it was pretty in-depth close contact tracing. We do have some mechanisms in place. We're looking at continuing with seating charts. So we'll continue with seating charts in the classroom and try to be mindful of how we're potting. And so that we still will notify parents if there is a lab positive in the classroom where someone has been infected, but definitely not the same. I mean, our principals were measuring, is this desk 6 feet or 5 feet? I mean, it was very, very intensive. And we do want to make sure parents are notified. So if we do get notification, many times some of the lab positive cases or where they've been, especially we saw some trends at the high school where it was parties or outside rec events, things that they were involved in, and you would see some patterns of positive cases coming up there. We would get notification. Once we are notified, we will try to make sure that we let people know that are, but most of the time the exposure was not happening in the school setting. Definitely trends of events that were outside of the school day. We will notify. So notification, I think I mentioned this, but let me just make sure I'm clear on what that looks like. The COVID-19 dashboard will continue, and we'll continue it by campus. So once we're notified of a lab positive that's been on a Lovejoy ISD campus, we will update that the same day. Campuses will send out notification only to a parent of a child that has been around someone that has been identified as lab positive. The difference of last year is we had lab positive communication that was going out, and then there were general notifications that were going out to there has been a case on the campus. And so really right now we're narrowing it down to lab positive, and then the dashboard will continue. And we try to make sure that that's on demand updated. Ironically, there are some districts who chose to do like they were only going to update twice a week. And we didn't feel like that was very transparent because you're not sure, did this happen on Monday or did it happen on Friday, right, of the changes in variance in numbers. So we chose as administration that we would continue to update that daily. Our nurses definitely are a great line of defense. They are going to use their best clinical judgment when students present. And so some things that help them, if parents will make sure that in Power School, on the parent portion of Power School, that they update the health portion. So if they have a student that has a lot of allergies, it allows them to, especially if they've not worked with them before, it allows them to know, is this breathing difficulty due to the asthma, or is it something else? So the more of the health history that we can get is very helpful for them to be able to, as they start triaging, students come in. We'll continue, and we had this pathway last year. We had a room that's the clinic that normally students that may come in for daily medication or Band-Aids, ice, etc. So we kind of call it the well clinic side of the house. That will continue. We'll also have a room that we use that for more students who are presenting with sickness that could potentially be contagious. So definitely try to minimize any factors that if students are still needing access to the clinic, but we're not having students mixed together. They're there just for minor things or daily medication. The other guideline that's going to be a little bit different is UIL. I always say you can come back to school faster on the academic side, at least what we know right now. UIL has not put anything out since June 5th, but it's my understanding they're supposed to be meeting this week. But historically, UIL would follow everything the school followed, except they would require one additional release from the doctor before you could come back to play. And so right now, that's how it stands. So you could come back and be sitting in a biology class sooner than you can be back on the football field if you haven't gotten clearance from your doctor. And so we'll update that as UIL gives us additional information. So any questions on the pathway for if I'm a symptomatic individual, a lab positive, that's where it says diagnosed, or exposure? So absences, right now there's not a virtual option that districts have, the virtual learning like we had last school year. There are a couple of bills that are being introduced in the special session that could give us additional information that schools may have to adhere to, but that's all very new, but it is out there. Right now, the same pathway that we would do pre-COVID is if a student had to be out, the teacher would make sure that either using Seesaw or Google Classroom, that they would make sure that the student has access to their information. Truly, if they're too sick to be at school, they may not be very productive getting work done. So we get that. And it's also on us as educators when a student is well to welcome them back in and create a plan for them to get caught up. So first and foremost, we want their health to be the priority. And then once they come back in, definitely look at ways to make sure that any gaps or anything that they've missed that we work to get them taken care of. So for example, at secondary, when we think about Willow Springs and the high school, we may utilize the Center for Academic Training for students if they've had a large gap of being out, and how do we bring them back in? And number one, they may still, their stamina may not be the greatest. So keep that in mind, and we don't want all 8 teachers going, I need you at tutoring yesterday. And so what are things that we can do to be mindful as we welcome them back into the school setting?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Can you reiterate how some districts are offering some virtual options and it's different this year than what was available last year, and the details and restrictions around that?
Absolutely. There is not a funded virtual option that is currently available to school districts. So there is a neighboring school district, Frisco ISD, that announced for their K through 6 that they are going to have a virtual option. They will have to fund that out of their M&O funds or out of their fund balance. Some districts who received a large amount of ESSER funds are using that. There are very few school districts in our state that years ago, there was a small little window, and if they applied to the state and were approved to have a virtual school and run a virtual school, they could do that. That window was opened and closed in a very brief period of time. So you'll hear about a few districts that have that option as well.
And the conference thing that was talked about?
Yes. Yes, I want to make sure I use the correct terminology for that. That is going to be, Sancy, help me with that one.
It's the remote
The remote conferencing.
Mhm.
That is remarkably challenging because of some of the parameters. So for remote conferencing, that would be a scenario that would have to be synchronous. The teacher would have to be certified in the content area. It would have to be for a total of 40 minutes or 60 minutes?
I think it's 40.
240 minutes a day to qualify for some ADA, and it cannot be concurrent. So the teacher cannot be instructing live students, right? And for example, have Zoom going for the student who's not in the classroom.
You have to be able to afford a special teacher to do that.
Right, and so what solutions the commissioner offered was you can hire teachers, hire retired teachers, hire substitutes. I will tell you there is a teacher shortage throughout the state right now. We are fortunate that we are in a pretty solid position going into next week. So we feel really good, and that is to the credit of our Human Resources Department and our principals. They've done an incredible job making sure we are staffed with high quality educators. There are not additional people out there that would want to take this on. Additionally, given our financial reality right now, that is not reasonable. That is something that would be very detrimental to our financial sustainability.
Well, and I think one point to make, and I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but it's capped at 20 instructional days
That's
per
such a
year.
good point, yes.
So it's not a
long-term
It's not a
solution.
semester-long, year-long event. It's 20 days to get sick people back to school.
Mhm.
So
And you make such a good point. It's 20 days and you have to qualify for it through certain criteria. So the student has to have a medical qualification. So they have
Like
to be
COVID
ill.
positive test.
Absolutely. They have to be quarantining for close contact or COVID positive.
Yeah, they use the language of temporary medical condition. So the temporary medical condition is determined by a physician. So you have to have some information. A doctor would, a licensed physician to practice in the U.S. It must include a statement from the physician that the student is to remain confined to their home or to a hospital. The student has a positive test result from a communicable condition, or the student has been identified as being in close contact with COVID-19. So it is very restricted. And then again, to your point, the total amount of remote conferencing instruction does not exceed more than 20 instructional days over the entirety of the school year. So there's some parameters with that one.
Sounds like not logistically feasible for us.
It is not logistically feasible for a lot of school districts.
and the TEA guidance on that makes it clear that it's an optional thing, not a mandatory.
Absolutely. It is an option.
That's correct. Just in case, I know that we've gotten some questions on administration or concern about withdrawals. And so as of today, and so our PEAM staff, and they do a fabulous job on every campus tracking who's coming in, who's going out. And so on the K-12 side of the house, we've had 8 students who have withdrawn, and we were told that was due to COVID. And then on the early childhood side, we've had 2 students that just out of concern, parents decided that they would keep their children home. So that's as of today. We are tracking that and keeping an eye.
So you said 8 in K4?
K-12.
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 8 total.
So does that mean now the number's 14 then for the balanced budget? Because it was 6 before? Or was it 8 before?
No, those were
Oh, that includes
yeah.
that? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. You're ahead of us, Stacy.
When
Thank
we
you.
were talking enrollment, all
Got it,
that was
okay.
in there. Yes.
Okay.
So were those with, what was the time frame of those withdrawals? Was that after this plan was published last week, or that was prior to?
There were some that were already, I can look at the actual, I don't have that specific, but we already had a few. I want to say 5-ish, Jason, that had made that decision as a family. So as Dee Dee shared, transportation, so not only are we looking at kind of mitigating measures on the campus, so how do we make sure we keep the buildings clean and sanitized, encouraging people to stay home, whether it's students, staff, or visitors to the campus if they have symptoms. Our buses are always also being mindful of making sure that there's hand sanitizer available when students are coming on the bus, seating charts available, because that definitely helps our campus principals when they're looking at who's at least been around each other, because we definitely will send out that notification to parents. The sanitization will take place in between routes. So just making sure that we're keeping things as clean as possible. And then the window, of course, the ventilation, keeping it down some to allow for ventilation on the buses. I'd already shared with UIL, but again, we'll continue to follow anything as they make any changes or adjustments. Again, they're supposed to be meeting this week. I believe off the top of my head, it's Thursday. So as we get new information, we'll update the health and safety measures in this document.
Any questions? Thank you, Sandy. Okay, item 13 is a report on the superintendent's 2021-2022 focus areas and leadership update from Ms. Cordell.
Good evening. We had the best morning. Convocation was this morning, which is why we are wearing our Lovejoy t-shirts. And convocation is a really important day in a school district because that's the day that all of the staff and teachers come together to kick off the new school year. It was amazing to have everybody there together and thinking about how we are going to make sure we are preparing for our students. So I want to update you on some of that and make sure we make some of this information publicly available as well. We've got stakeholders that I'm sure would be interested in some of what we covered. We were very focused on our core values. We have 3 core values in Lovejoy ISD: kids come first, one heart, one Lovejoy, and best today, better tomorrow. Our theme or major focus this morning was kids come first. I'm actually going to go back to this for a minute and make sure that I celebrate the incredible students. This morning, many of our fine arts students, our cheerleaders, our majestics, our band, our orchestra, our theater and choir did a remarkable job really pumping up the energy in the room and entertaining our staff. We are so thankful and grateful to Dr. Matthew, who's here with us this evening, as well as
well done. Well done.
They exceeded any expectation that we possibly could have had. Our students are so talented and our directors do such a remarkable job with our students. You can, yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I want to say one thing that was my favorite part, and those of you that were there, and maybe you saw this too. So I would see a majestic playing the violin, you know, or I would see the MC that's amazingly theatrical wearing a Lovejoy wrestling shirt. Like, it was the epitome of like a Lovejoy kid that can do all these things so well. And I don't know if y'all did it on purpose, but like I kept looking like, well, there's another one, like all these people wearing multiple hats. It was just, that was so perfect. So fella, if you did that intentionally or if that's just how they all are, like it was fabulous. It just impressed me beyond no end. Yeah, it was just so, it was great.
That was great.
Sorry.
Even Brinley, who was one of our student MCs, she is incredibly talented. She's in choir and she's in theater, I believe, and she was wearing her wrestling
Yes.
shirt. So
yeah,
it was
super
phenomenal. Cool. So grateful. Our teachers of the year spoke, Vice President Smith spoke and touched our hearts. And so it was a really, really great morning celebrating what we believe. One of the things we talked about was being purpose-driven. Excellent organizations always start with the why. This is from Simon Sinek's book, Start with the Why. Excellent organizations, they start with the why, they move to the how, and then to the what. And we are very purpose-driven in Lovejoy ISD. That's what makes us special. That's what makes us unique. Our why is that we are highly committed to propelling every person to personal excellence. That's our mission. That is our reason for existing. We also talked this morning a little bit about our personal why and how it is so important as educators to have our individual purpose that serves to give us passion and sustains us in challenging times. I shared a little bit about my why. We talked about how we have the privilege of holding hope, the hope of each individual child, their family, our schools, and our community. It is such a privilege to get to do this work and to be in a room with people that share the passion for holding this hope with such care and such competence was really incredible. We also talked about our how, which is the way we must act, behave, and lead if we are going to accomplish our goals together. And our how, our actions and behaviors are driven by our core values. Kids come first, one heart, one Lovejoy, best today, better tomorrow. And if you think about it, it's student-centered decision-making, it's relationships, and it's a focus on continuous improvement. Relationships, learning, collaboration, and results are 4 tenets that can deeply be found in our core values. If we are doing these things together, making sure we have deep, meaningful relationships that are characterized by trust and integrity with our students, with our community, and with each other, we know that that will serve us well. We also, as a team, as a staff, need to make sure we continue to learn and grow so that we can be at our absolute best. And we are constantly challenging ourselves and asking ourselves the question, what do our students need to best serve them? What would they need us to learn to best serve them? And then collaborating. We know that we have brilliant people on our team, and if we work together, we can do far more than what any of us can do individually. So working in collaborative teams, leaning on each other's strengths is critical to being an excellent organization. And then, of course, being focused on results. We all have the best of intentions, but we have to hold ourselves also accountable for tangible outcomes on behalf of our students. And then we jumped into the what, which are our focus areas. That includes making sure we continue to prioritize and build upon our culture of excellence in Lovejoy ISD. We are going to maintain our high expectations and then leverage the collective impact of all of our stakeholders to make sure we are achieving those outcomes on behalf of our students. We also are highly committed to making sure our students are future ready. We want them to personify the graduate profile and make sure that we are using research-based instructional best practices and then also innovating to make sure our students are prepared for what is going to be demanded of them in a future-ready workplace. We are also going to make sure we're leveraging technology appropriately for individualization and to deepen those learning experiences. Financial sustainability is our third focus area. We want to make sure our actions are putting us in a position for both short-term and long-term financial sustainability. We do not want our budget shortfall to become part of the Lovejoy ISD story. That means we have to strategically balance financial decision-making with our mission and our commitment to the Lovejoy experience. Throughout this school year, we're going to be going through a financial assessment. We'll identify our priorities, and we will work together to support strategic financial planning. In addition, we will put some focus on zero-based budgeting and make sure that we are being transparent. I know all of you were here this morning, and we're so grateful for your time and support and being part of this. Are there any questions or comments that you have?
You did an outstanding job this morning. I think it was incredible for all of our staff to see you and your authentic heart for them and for our kids. I think it was a bright, shiny light that we all have seen, but I think they got to see that today, and that for me was really incredible. You did a really great job.
Thank you for your kind words. It's pretty easy to do, though, when you have the level of support that I've received from you all and from our entire staff. There was just some incredible positive energy in the room, and I always admired Lovejoy ISD. I knew it was an incredible place, and it is even more special than I could have possibly imagined.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 14 is a discussion of July 2022 and August 22 board meetings and workshop dates.
Yes, we have had a board member request. We've had a board member request to, and we're not requiring action tonight, but just to look at July 2022 and August 2022 so that both the board as well as staff, if there were any vacation plans, any family plans that needed to be made well in advance, that everyone had some tentative dates. And so we've prepared some of these for you. If you look, one date we could possibly look at is July 18th, 2022, for a regular board meeting, not having a workshop in July because of the time off. And then August 8th, being a Monday, for a board workshop there in green. And then the regular meeting being possibly August 29th. Again, no action tonight, but wanted to give the opportunity for you all to have discussion.
So we would return to school on the 15th?
The 15th.
So the 8th would be like with convocation, kind of like we did this time.
Today.
Possibly. We can shift the day. We can shift the day and time of convocation anytime that
Yeah.
week. If
It
we
was kind
would
of cool
need
that
to.
way. I mean,
Kick you off the week.
it was.
It was.
I can say I don't know what my schedule will hold by next time, so depends on the baseball world, but I'm good with whatever the group wants to do.
That's good news.
Don't plan that far ahead.
Yeah. It is nice to know, though, if that is the date we choose, then we
Yeah.
can start planning around it and know
Yeah.
it. So I think that's a great idea.
I do like too, just the one meeting in July, just it alleviates a little bit of the scheduling if you have vacations and things, so that's helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 15 is a review of August 23rd, 2021 board meeting agenda.
Yes, we have a draft of the August 23rd regular board meeting agenda for you. You will see that we have the details regarding what could fall under closed session. Right now, we have 2 items potentially: evaluation of employees as well as procedural status of TEA docket number 046 R1006 2021. Then return to open meeting. We've got the typical things that happen, the opening exercise, and then in recognitions, we're excited to invite the American Heart Association, who had a generous donation for us that we hope to celebrate and share with you. And then, of course, public comments, invocation. We also wanted to update on legal aspects of board governance and community participation. We've got our consent agenda. Many of those things you all are very used to seeing. Something of note on there, of course, is K. I've been told that I better make sure that that comes to you, and I get support. It says ready for resale food, chicken sandwiches. I've been told that if our high schoolers don't have those Chick-fil-A sandwiches, I might as well not keep showing up around here. So that one's an important one on our draft agenda.
One other question on that F. So consider approval of student travel providers. I think I've heard this, but remind me, we're going back to normal travel, right?
We
tournaments and
yes,
performances and
yes,
because that all kind of got reined in, but we're back to normal now.
We are back to normal
Okay.
travel. We do have some parameters in there where wherever possible, if a parent feels more comfortable transporting, we'll
Right.
have some flexibility there. We also have some nuances in terms of number of students in rooms, but all of
Okay.
that'll be communicated to
Okay.
our students and
Perfect.
parents.
Since I saw it, I figured I'd ask.
Right. Is there anything else on consent that you all wanted to talk about? And then we've got in 11, some board notifications. We'll notify you of resignations. And then if you'll recall, our previous policy required notification of the 2021 school year purchases over 50,000. So we'll make sure we comply with that for the previous year. Remember, moving forward, if they're 75,000 or above, those will come to you individually for approval. So you'll have awareness of those throughout the school year. And then a financial update from Dr. Duplessis. And then we've got the consider approval of the 2021 certified tax roll, 14, consider adoption of the 2021 tax rate. We may bring you number 15, if we did that, the purchase of playground equipment for the Child Development Center. You all would receive information between now and then in regard to pricing. And then 16, we need to do an approval of a grievance policy or consider approval of a grievance policy for accelerated instruction. That is something that came out of this last legislative session, that House Bill 4545, which has to do with accelerated instruction. And we are still waiting for some TEA guidance on that. Once we have that, we will put that on the agenda. And then number 17, consideration of delegates and alternates to the TASA-TASB Convention, which is in September. And then 18, consider candidates for the TASA-TASB Board of Directors. 19, consider approval of the July 2022 and August 2022 board meetings and workshop dates. Should you want to do it at that time, we can also push that to a later date if you would like. And then our cabinet reports, superintendent's report, and announcements and adjournment.
That's great. Thank you for that proactive report. Next is any announcements. Do you have any announcements? You just presented.
Yes, I've announced already.
You're announced out. I just want to say a particular thank you. I made a note for the custodial staff. I heard that all morning long in convocation, and then I've heard it again all night here. So a particular thank you to all of our custodial staff and the effort they have put forth, not only this last year through the heavy lifting, but even preparation for this school year. So thank you so much to our custodial staff.
Yep.
I just wanted to
Well
say
said.
that. I just heard that over and over, so thank you. Anybody else have any other announcements or? Nope. Okay, we're adjourned.